I'm not one to pick up an anime or even a show that I don't know I'm going to be particularly interested in. But every now and again, I look at that seasonal shelf on my anime sites and I decide, screw it, I'll pick that one off the shelf. So I picked up something that I thought looked like some trash isekai that watched the first few episodes and be like, yep, I wasted my time. I was blown away by what was an amazing first episode that explores all the main themes and hits all the highs that carry the story forward. With pre-established depth, this story helped me deal with being homesick. I am, of course, talking about the surprisingly refreshing Frieren. This show it's great. It's been exploding online, incredibly so. It has dethroned the Goldie of Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood for the highest rated anime of all time. For now, at least. I get it. The story so far has, well, everything the average anime watcher would want in a show. Big fights, slices of life, comedy, and well, good and endearing writing. One moment explores the colorful world to seeing the insecurities that drive each character. And never is that truer than in the first episode. I personally can't stand isekais anymore, at least. I understand the premise of the show shouldn't allow you to completely write it off as a good work of fiction, but the opening episodes to a story are in fact some of the most important parts of the story, full stop. These are the chapters where you're supposed to hook your audience in, and if your opening chapters are incredibly similar to what any other story is doing, then why should I spend my time reading it? That's not saying that the opening chapter of every isekai is terrible, or the exact same. I know 4 isekai that hooked me in with their premise and their first opening 3 episodes. But there's loads of shows like this. Some don't live up to the expectations of their opening episodes, or go in a direction that I don't necessarily feel comfortable with. Shows like ReZero that have an incredibly strong opening with added depth with their extra layers of the premise that distinguishes it from other isekais. The layer in question is the time travel aspect. And then we've got simple brutal openings like in Goblin Slayer, a story that focuses on the smaller characters in a fantasy world and how it's noble to work hard to one singular goal and being the best at that simple menial task. But in essence, it's the plot beats and settings that are almost identical in every one of these shows. This leads to a boring world, even if it is built on well. World building is exceedingly important to the longevity of a story, and for shows that share almost all of their qualities, of their settings, and their world. But in many ways, this fantasy setting debunks a lot of the problems that these other stories have. When does it start? At the end of a grand adventure reminiscing of the Lord of the Rings and the fall of Sauron, the Demon King is dead. Rather than showing us this monumental journey of defeating the Demon King, it uses it as a platform to bounce the actual narrative from. And a narrative that is pretty goddamn special. As for the characters, they're pretty good. And I don't want to spoil anything major because, well, the thing is, this is a relationship show. It's about the relationships between the characters. So a minor spoiler here and there might give away something in the long term. But I will talk a little about Frieren. She is very powerful. Some might even like to say that she comes across as a power trip character in this story. Something like Psyche from Psyche Awakens, or, you know, One Punch Man, where the main character is completely overpowered and thus remove any agency the rest of the cast have within the story. This works incredibly well for comedy-like stories, but this isn't a comedy story, nor is Frieren necessarily OP herself. Her overwhelming power as a mage is only a tool in her arsenal. It's not her defining feature. Much like in Mob Psycho 100, he doesn't use his overwhelming power in the psychic arts to define his character, but uses it as a tool to better himself and to achieve some of his goals. Frieren does the exact same thing. She uses her endless lifespan to pick up spells that can make her menial everyday tasks much easier. She's probably one of the most powerful people in the story so far, but unlike One Punch Man and Psyche, she doesn't exclusively use it to fix the problems she comes across. This stems from the fact that the narrative is character driven, almost entirely. It's unlike other shonen properties. There's no big evil to defeat. It's simply a journey for an emotionally driven goal. The Hero's Party. This story starts where another one ends. The party of a classic fantasy adventuring group returning home after completing their goal of defeating the Demon King. They celebrate their victory. The entire kingdom celebrates their victory, worshipping their saviors. After an audience with the king himself and truly becoming the heroes, they reminisce over the past 10 years with bittersweet nostalgia, except one. As the sky fills with falling stars, a rare meteor shower only happens every 50 years. Frieren comments that this is a bad view and that she can show them a better one next time. Himmel, the leader of the party, laughs it off and expresses concerns about making it to 50 years in the future. They will all be old men by then, but accepts and enjoys the idea. As they look at the stars, they feel content, even though they know that the story of Himmel's party ends here. As time passes, we see the world and all the people around change, age and change as we follow Frieren, as she explores looking for her new spells. One thing that really stood out to me was a shopkeeper during this montage. At the start we see a young, energetic man. The next, a sluggish grandfather. So much change, even within the landscape. But Frieren doesn't change a pixel. This scene plays out in under a minute, but 50 years within the confines of the story have passed. Is this contrasted more than when we meet back up with Himmel? Himmel is a short, aged, bald man. The only thing that is reminiscent of his younger self is the mole on his cheek. They meet the rest of the aged party and start their journey to the spot to view the meteor shower. But why are we spending so much time focusing on the meteor shower and not the death of the Demon King or the time spent looking for her spells? No, here is where the value is. This story is from her, Frieren's perspective, and what she values takes precedent over a battle with a mere warlord or a side hobby. It's here and now she values. The time with the people that she at least has some bond with. This is where we see the Era meteor shower in its full glory. And we see the light, one particular meteor, beautifully blazing through the sky. A fiery comet. A fiery comet that quickly burns up. And we witness the point of perspective of Himmel, the hero, fade to black. Just like the comet, Hero's short yet beautiful life has burned out. Himmel was a legend to his people, and his funeral predicts as much. He's built a connection with his people, more so than anyone else in his party. The people mourn, and they display that, but Frieren and the rest of their party does not. But we see this armor break. As they bury Himmel, she is burdened with regret and loss, no longer seeing connection to humans as meaningless, but regretting not getting to know Himmel better. It was only a short time after all. On paper, this loss should mean very little, and that's why this is an emotional turning point for Frieren. She mourns not truly for the loss of Himmel, her friend, but the opportunity itself to understand that friend better. This story's drive, its motivation, the message of wanting to spend more time and get to know the people you love while you can. This really spoke to me, at least right now. I recently moved away from my tiny countryside village I grew up in Ireland, and I can't help feel in a similar way to Frieren. I miss the support of my family and having a bustling household, my brothers and sisters that I could chat, argue, and laugh with, all guards down, whenever I wanted to. I miss feeling at home. This isn't losing a loved one like Frieren did, but it's a loss nonetheless. And like Frieren, I regret not spending more time with the people of my home, the friends I had. I can always go back and see my family and friends, but from here on out, there's always going to be some form of distance, both physical and personal. So how does Frieren deal with this? Well, she reforms. She decides to take the time to get to know people around her, letting the loss of Himmel the hero act as a lesson and begin a journey with her new friends to a place where she can truly say goodbye to the man that changed her.